Welcome back to the channel. The ZX10 seems to have a fault with its brake lever switch. So when you press this lever, it doesn't make that nice clicking noise as the switch activates. So I went to take the bike for its yearly MOT, and whilst checking it over beforehand, I realised there's a fault with it. So obviously couldn't take the bike for the MOT. An MOT, for those of you who are not in the UK, is a yearly check of a vehicle just to make sure it's in roadworthy condition. So you're not getting this click. And if I just zoom you over here to the back of the bike, there we are. There's no brake light coming on, which there is. If I press the foot brake, you'll see it reflecting. So nothing wrong with the lights, it's just the switch. We're not getting that click. Now, I did realise there was a fault with it beforehand, and there's actually two faults with it. The spade connectors come off the electrical connection, which I did make a temporary fix, and I did fix the brake switch, but that's obviously failed again. I did buy a new one and then totally forgot about doing it. So we're just going to whip it apart and repair these two problems. So the easiest thing to do, because all the switches are underneath, is to take the brake lever off its mount. This is a 5mm Allen key, or hex key, whichever way you want to call it. Okay. Let's try and get a good view of this. I might have to bring it around the other side. So hopefully you can see that. So these are the two switches that came off very easy. They just fell off the connector. So obviously they're not as tight as they could be. That's the original one, which is fine. And that's one I've repaired. So I'm going to try and do that a little bit better. And here is our switch. So when you press it, it should make a nice clicking noise, but it's doing nothing. So just going to pop that off. Okay, so there's the switch, and it's kind of stuck in. I'll take you over to the bench, and we'll oops. I did jam something in there which just fell out. I was trying to temporarily repair it. Obviously that didn't work. Okay, let's have a quick look at this. I can't remember how I did it. Let me get a lamp first of all. Give me a second. Okay, that might help us see a bit better. There we are. It just came off with the shrink wrap, shrink tubing, should I say. And we've got another bit here. There we are. So I just kind of soldered that one to the old bit just to give me a bit more length, because I was struggling to connect it and it was only a temporary job, but I totally forgot to tidy it up. So the fault with this brake light switch is actually in two parts. One, the spade connector came off. I think I had a problem when I did the bike originally, and I tried to solder it together and it didn't obviously work. So I have, for the time being, put a standard spade connector on with a long bit of wire just to get it working. But also the switch was faulty, but we'll come to that in a minute. So I'm going to try and take this plastic boot off, because I can't get a hold of anything like this. So I'm going to cut it down there. It looks like that's how it was put together in the past. So I'm going to cut this open, resolder this, or maybe use a new one if it's better. I think it's the same size, I'll have to double check. So these ones are a right angle as opposed to straight ones, and I want it to look normal. I'll put it back in, resolder it, glue this, or melt the rubber back over, just to make it look as it should. And then the brake switch, that's a brand new one off a popular auction site. It costs less than £6 delivered, so you know, and you get this nice crisp clicking noise, which the other one, as I show you, isn't working. I'll take the other one apart just to show you the insides of it. It looks quite well worn. I did manage to get it working, but obviously that's now failed. So for less than £6, we'll put that on. A nice simple switch. It doesn't have to be complicated. I'm sure there are some manufacturers now that are overcomplicating it by putting weird switches on. That's quite simple and straightforward. Okay, so here are the two switches. That's the new one, obviously, and that is the old one. Just going to pop it apart and just so you can have a look at it. So what you've got in there is a very simple switch. It's just this is worn out, and these are moving around too much and unhooking from the springs and whatever. Like I say, I did get it working, but I can't be bothered to do it again, especially for the sake of £5. Let's just fly would buzz off. So, bin, new one on the bike. I'm just going to cut this open. There we go. Looks about the same size. It fits reasonably nicely over there. Maybe slightly bigger. Let's just see if we can get it inside. You know, failing that, I could maybe bend one of these, but I'm not so sure. Let's try this one first. Looks a bit big, to be honest. Small. That fits nicely. That was just a bit big. Okay, I'll come back to you in a moment once I try to bend one of these. Okay, so I haven't bent one, but I've managed to take it out of its little cover. And it fits in there quite nicely. But still needs a bit of a bend. Don't look too bad. I'd like a bit more of a bend if I could. Oops. I think I'll solder it on, or crimp it on, then solder it, and then worry about bending it. I think I'll get a new one. Okay, so I've already got the old bit of wire off. Okay, that's in quite nicely. Problem is it won't turn at a certain angle. I think what I'm going to have to do is, because of the turn, I'm going to have to add a little tiny bit of wire on. Okay. Just going to bend this. Okay, so I've got that sitting quite nicely in the boot. Just need to solder it on. So it's very similar to the other one. The problem is I'm not going to be able to get any shrink tubing on it, so that'll just shrink as I'm soldering. So I may have to just put a bit of tape around there possibly. I'm just going to put a little bit of solder on this wire. quite strong, and leave that alone. So I'm just going to try and put a tiny bit of tape around there to tidy it up, and then hopefully get the boot back on. This is the tricky bit. And I'm happy with that. That's pretty good. So I'm going to try and hold it together. I'll try and melt the plastic with a soldering iron. If not, I might just glue it. So when the switch is on the bike, it's sat in a compressed state, and then when you pull the lever in, it releases and makes the contact. Quite simple. There we go. So when you pull the lever, you get that familiar clicking noise. Very, very simple, straightforward. So I'm just going to let this dry for a second, and then I'm going to put the spade connectors back on. It doesn't matter which order they go in. So that was a nice, quick, easy fix. Just a bit fiddly more than anything else. So I'm just going to connect the spades up. There's no polarity difference. Nice and tight, that one, well done. There's not much room on this bike to adjust this up and down. Lots of bikes do have more space. So nice and snug, but not too tight. I'm sure there's a torque wrench set in. Yeah, sounds nice. Let's just make sure the brake light works. And that's all good. Join me on the next video.